Oh, shift! You're listening to the O Shift podcast.
There's a lot of what I call the best kept secrets. I would talk to folks within the product and they would be like, hey, we have built this agent for the store associate. Right. Most of our customers use it. I don't see it on the webpage. I don't see it on the marketing page. What's going on there? You absolutely need to start building small, constantly learn and measure your outcomes, and then tweak it along the way.
Welcome to the O Shift podcast, where AI meets SaaS. I'm Rick Watson, and this series is about how software companies are evolving in an AI-first world without throwing away their code base and starting over. How do organizations take the next step? Today, I'm joined by Karthik Marudur, VP of Strategy at OneStock, a founder-led order management platform which is used by retailers to help orchestrate omnichannel operations. Karthik, and you'll hear about his background, is like a longtime veteran of tech and supply chain. He's helped build large-scale OMS programs and has a very pragmatic mind for the industry. So would love to help unpack this with him, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, isn't it? 20 plus years in retail, kind of just flew by pretty fast. Starting with Yantra way back. I remember in the Acton building in Massachusetts, and spending time in R&D, learning the product, moving over to services, doing some big bang projects, including brands like Best Buy, DSW, traveling all the way to Japan for Ajinomoto, for wholesale distribution, whatnot. And then spending time at Manhattan building their order management product from ground up, the B2C order management specifically. And it was a great experience, built the business for 14 years. And then, did a gig at Fluent before, now at OneStock. With a great brand now, a great company. But thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no problem. And talk to me a little bit about your role in the company. What's a VP of strategy? What is your day-to-day like? And where does OneStock fit in the world?
Sure. I think, if I kind of rewind, it really started with a dinner with a CEO who's also the founder and founder-led company. He's a former professor, and he has done his PhD in the good old AI, not the new AI, the old AI. And, having a meeting with him and kind of understanding how he has built the company, which is based on humility, passion, and a lot of transparency and honesty. And in fact, when I went to a few customers and I talked to a few customers recently, and that kind of echoes and how he has, permeated that, his DNA across the company is very contagious and has built a great brand. And for me to come in, and kind of lead the overall strategy, starting from sales to marketing to product overall, leading the global strategy. And as we are still, I would say, novice from a North America perspective, from a brand perspective. So we are still building the brand here. We are building the customer base here. So that, I lead the overall strategy, helping the teams evangelize the brand, evangelize the product, and also laying out the product strategy and vision, including, how we can use AI as an enabler.
No, I mean, it's interesting. And you mentioned, your founder was schooled in old AI, not the new AI, but obviously you're evolving, and there've been a lot of changes the last couple of years, starting with the introduction of ChatGPT to the industry. That clearly changes how you operate as a business or how you think about the business. Like, what was that moment that you had or the company had post that you're like, things can't be the same, and where did you go from there?
No, great question, Rick. I think one of the first things I identified when I came into the company is, I don't know how much you know about OneStock itself. They're based out of Toulouse. It's a very university town. I went to University of Oklahoma. It's like a Norman mentality where there's a lot of universities there, and there's a lot of resource pool available for you to tap into. And a lot of the energy and the passion you see within the company comes from those universities and the folks who graduate from those universities. So it's a great talent pool, great company, and they built a great customer base even before I got in. But one of the things I found out as I started having conversations with folks within the company is there's a lot of the what I call the best kept secrets within the company, right? I would talk to folks within the product, and they would be like, "Hey, we have built this agent for a store associate,"
Right.
and I'm like, "How many customers are using it?" "Oh, most of our customers use it." I don't see it on the webpage. I don't see it on the marketing page. What's going on
Right.
there? And then they come and say, we have a Slack kind of a chat channel, internal chat tool we use, and I see something called OneBot. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"Hey guys,
Yeah, what's this?
what is this OneBot?" And they're like, "Oh, this is our internal chat agent, which we have been using it for a year. It is all actually built a huge knowledge base. We have built a data lake coming from information from various data sources and whatnot." And I'm like, "Great!" And we use this experience to build agents. Yeah, we are working on those kind of stuff. So there's a lot of these best kept secrets. So I said, okay, I think my primary job is going to be to elevate some of these best kept secrets
Mm-hmm.
and playing the role of the chief evangelist and talk about it to the outside world, to our existing customers, to our prospects, to the analyst industry, etc. So yeah, that's part of my role, and that's a good problem to have.
Right.
Where the
Yeah.
company is already kind of ahead of where we need to be, and you are actually given the problem of how do we elevate this and solve some practical problems for our customers, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's a great place to start because there's a lot of things that you found that were already in place, but then obviously the company needs to evolve as well. And I think there are a lot of companies out there that are trying to figure out like where do I start? How do I prioritize where I spend my like how do my humans spend time building better systems and outcomes for customers? How do you think about how you frame that problem and you look at making those priority decisions?
So I think I always tell folks within, and comes from experience as well, is always start with the business problem, right?
Mm,
And because most of the time when you talk to our customers, the first thing they talk about is, mostly you talk to the IT folks and then you talk to the business folks. The IT folks tend to steer you towards the solution,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So you got to
Yeah.
take a step back and say,
Yeah.
fantastic, you need a button here, you need to have a UI here, you need to have this API, etc. All that is great, but what is the business problem we are solving?
Right.
Right? Let's take it back. Go and let's talk to your customer service agents. Let's talk to your store associates. Let's talk to your order specialist. Let's talk to your fraud specialist, whoever that business person is, and understand what the business problem they are trying to solve and what is the KPI they are trying to hit. Okay,
Right.
and then let's put together the solution, and then of course use the best technology out there. And AI is an enabler. Frankly, the way I look at it is, one of the first things I did when I came in is we had a deck. I still remember. We used to call it OneStock's AI vision,
Mm,
right? And I said, this is great. We are doing a lot of stuff. I kind of turned it around to say, let's look at it from a business problem perspective, right?
mm,
How are we determining the future of commerce, right? How are we actually helping retailers solve the challenges which are there ahead of them, so that they can prepare for the future of commerce? If you look at it, the future of commerce, typically, based on the recent, news and what the customers, where the customers are going, customer expectations are going, there are kind of three factors I would say,
okay.
besides the future of commerce. The first one I would say is hyper personalization of
Mm,
customer experiences, right? The good old customer experiences
yeah.
of going to a browser and searching for an item. I think that's gone,
Mm,
right? So they are expecting a lot more conversational, a lot more assistance. They don't want to be left in the digital on their own, the digital channel on their own. The
mhm,
second one I would say is operational efficiency, and profitability comes tags along with that,
mhm,
right? Just don't do omni-channel, but can you do omni-channel profitably?
mm,
Right? Are you providing tools in the hands of your customer service associates and in the hands of your store associates so that they can perform their jobs in an efficient manner in delivering those customer experiences? And the third thing, which is never going to go away, is complexity. right?
Mm.
As some of these things evolve, the complexity continues to increase. So our job is to continue to look at what business problems are, important for our customers, kind of bring it back and see how we can solve it. And I think with one bot, it has really given us that opportunity to first try that in-house to solve some of the internal business problems we had, and then now turn that experience and empathy into what we gained over the
Got it.
experience of OneBot into solving practical problems for our customers.
Got it. So I guess why don't you break down, like, just from the simplest terms, what is the problem that one bot is solving and how is it put together?
So if you start from a sales perspective, right? What does the sales team have to do? One of the first things they have to do is there's an RFI or an RFP which comes in, right? It's like a freaking 300, 400 questions, 6 sheets, whatever it is. I mean, it's interesting that hasn't really changed, and hopefully, there will be an AI tool, for that soon. But what we have done is, how do we solve that business problem of the sales and the pre-sales have to fill out those RFPs and the RFIs, right? So we have built, I would say, a data lake, bringing in those RFPs over years, the data from the RFPs, the data on our Confluence pages, a lot of the products space. Within Confluence page, they have a lot of documentation about what the product does, both functional and technical. And then we have a lot of Jira tickets, which we bring in as part of that, and the product documentation. So we bring in everything together and build a data lake. And now your sales, pre-sales, for example, can come in and ask or have a conversation, ask questions to OneBot. And by the way, we have integrated OneBot into our chat channel, the input chat application. So it's just another chat, channel, or you're chatting with another person here. It's just called OneBot, and it is integrated so that you can, ask questions, get answers, go through the history, search for answers, what you have already asked for or others have asked for, and then you can also rate it. Right. So we have really built this tool that's kind of where it started. But now if you look across the organization, the sales, pre-sales, as I mentioned, they use it for filling out RFPs, filling out, responding to a technical questionnaire, performance questionnaire, whatever those things are coming from for their ongoing deals and from prospects. And then marketing teams use it for creating product marketing assets. The product teams, they can go through and ask questions about a specific feature. Which customers asked for it, etc. And they can actually help in prioritizing, the overall feature and put together a release plan. And then you also have, I would say, the development team, interestingly, using them for coming up with API documentation. So all the information is already fed in by the business analysts and the product managers and sitting in Confluence. It's a matter of extracting them via OneBot, asking the right questions and extracting them and feeding them into the API documentation.
Got it. And then is sort of Confluence being extracted, or is the bot reading over Confluence in real time, or how does that work?
So what we have done is it is read daily. Right. So on a daily basis, we extract information from Confluence. We have written scripts to extract information, and then that goes into a data lake, which is what our the OpenAI LLM, which we use right now, right, taps into. And we also have the agent, which we have built on top of that, and we have written MCP tools, which we have written to get those information. So it's a mixture of these things, but it's absolutely extracting information from Confluence, for example, on a daily basis.
Got it. I mean, it's super interesting. Are there any guardrails around these tools? Obviously, it seems like, there's a lot of data in here. Not all data is created equally. Some of it's confidential, some of it's not. How do you think about this question?
It's interesting you asked that, because our legal teams also use it, right? And they keep an eye on it all the time. And they, interestingly, have also been used as testers, right? So internal testers, where the legal team and some of the HR team, for obvious reasons, can come and ask questions to OneBot to make sure that OneBot behaves, and also make sure that none of the PII information gets leaked, etc. So as I mentioned earlier, this has given us a great platform to do, of course, develop empathy and perspective of the users, end users. When you provide an agent, I think what is the end user going to feel like, or what are they going to, are they, what are they going to feel when they don't get the answer they want? What are they going to feel like when they get the right answer? What is the next step? How do we evolve? I think this has given us a great platform for that. But also from a security perspective, picking the right technology, this is a great learning, right? And this has not happened overnight. This has happened over the course of a year. And that's what happens when you use your internal, members, right? Internal team members as a guinea pig for some of these, or pilot this for internally first. You have all these learnings, and frankly, your margin for error is a little big than when you go outside.
You mentioned one of your pillars in terms of reducing complexity, being more efficient. Clearly, setting up an OMS is very complex on its own, as you well know. Can you talk about just that as a problem domain and how AI could be applied to it, or how you've thought about that?
I was in London a couple of weeks back, and we had a customer event. We brought about 15 to 20 customers together from our customer base. And one of the topics, we had a few roundtables, and one of them was about what business problems are important, and how can we use AI to solve them, right? And what are you doing within your organization with AI, frankly? And one of the things which is paramount to our customers right now is operational efficiency. That is where they think the best bang for the buck is going to be, and the fastest ROI, frankly. Of course, there was a lot of innovation happening on the agentic commerce. Every day you hear something, a new LLM doing something with a brand or
right.
Whatnot, right? Or an e-commerce engine. That is happening, but I think that is still more on the experimental stage, the customer experience part of it. So retailers are still not jumped onto that bandwagon. At least our customer base, let me put it there. The big boys probably are already ready. They have their big IT teams, and they're already been working on it for years. But which leaves us to the 90% of the brands who are still waiting for that to mature a little bit, and then jump on that. So right now, the focus is on the operational efficiency. So what we have done is really focused on how can we help those teams who are, if you think about, think about your solution workshop, the good old implementation cycle, right? Beginning of the project, you bring in the business users, you bring in the IT users, you think about a room full of people with SIs and vendors sitting there and talking about conducting a solution workshop or a requirements workshop, right? Collecting requirements, putting together and writing what I remember we used to call it a solution definition document, right? And that used to get signed off in 6 to 7 weeks, that phase. And then you go and build the software, build the solution in a lot of ways. Some of them base, some of them you configure, some of them you have to build the extensions and whatnot. Yeah. And then in 6 months time frame or whatever, now it's coming down to 3 or 4 months. And when you do that, finish that, then the business users see the outcome. Right. Okay. The orders are flowing through. This is, I'm now doing fulfillment more profitably or not, et cetera, et cetera. But now what we have done is we have come up with something called a configuration agent. That's something we released 2 weeks back. And the end state of that, the way we are envisioning about the configuration agent, is that kind of compressing that 3 or 4 months into a few minutes. And how's that going to happen? The way that's going to happen is the agent is going to constantly listen to the solution workshop, the requirements gathering, and then dynamically going to configure the application, right? Whether it's a workflow, it's a sourcing rule, the allocation rule, right? The priority of that, setting up the, all that stuff, it does that. And then it runs a few orders to simulate, right? Orders through the system, and then right away shows you the output in a few minutes. Think about that world versus the world we live in today, right? I mean, not only from a cost perspective, but also from realizing whether something is going to work or not, right?
Yeah.
And recalibrate it within minutes versus you run it through during peak, then you figure out some things are not going to work and tweak it. So that world is gone, in my opinion.
That's super interesting because it's not just the listening and the configuration. It's not just setting up the system, but that I wanted to hone in on the simulation piece because I think this is something that's really unique. You don't hear a lot of software that helps you predict what's going to happen when you launch it and allow people to play with it. I guess, where did this idea come from, and how do you see it? I guess, how complex is this simulation?
So I think this is something a holy grail for a lot of the retailers always, because every time you go and have a conversation with, and this was very prevalent in the last few years, or been prevalent in the last few years, where customers are now asking, or the retailers are asking, all this is great, but can you show how my world is going to look like before I turn it on? Right? And people typically have multiple environments. They have the QA, they have the testing, and then they have prod, and they will run it through QA. Everything will work fine in QA, but once you put things in prod, because what happens is the data set, what you have, and also things change over time. Right. And customer behaviors change over time, and your what you are expecting from which a new tariff thing going on, what you are expecting from an inventory perspective might not happen. The events are not the same. You might not get the inventory at the same time. Your something is blocked in China. It's not yet arrived in. All those things can happen. There are all these disruptions, right, which you cannot necessarily predict when you run things in QA and test. Right. So one of the things we have done is this simulation does two things. It takes the configuration what the business users want at that given point, and it runs orders. It also takes the legacy orders, which you already have in your system, right? And we look at the historical pattern behavior of how your orders have behaved. What is the date you have estimated? What is the date you actually deliver, the actual versus estimated? And then have you done those fulfillments in a profitable way? What is your shipping margin, etc.? We continue to study that. And by the way, we also provide recommendations, right? I think it's a two-part journey. The first one is it's going to be recommendations provided to the business user. This is what you said the configuration should be, but this is what we think should be, right? And then they approve, they tweak it, and then the AI learns. And then eventually, the end goal, I don't think we are there yet, is to make it completely autonomous. Right? And that is the word, if you talk to a lot of the retailers, I don't want to be looking at my fulfillment and figuring out what I need to tweak on a ongoing basis. I want that to just flow, automatically, right? Without me hands-free. So I think we are not there yet, but that is where the autonomous supply chain is what I think everybody's aspiring for. This is our first step to get there.
Feedback in that kind of system is not easy because there's the customer's perception of the feedback before it goes live. There's the ongoing feedback as the system runs. There is your perception of, is the customer asking it to do the right things at all? So, how do you balance the feedback that you're giving the system?
Well, I think the first thing we are doing is we are behind the scenes measuring a lot of the agents and the MCP tools which we release to make sure that, and including the APIs as well, to measure them, which ones are being used the most. That's number one, right? So we wanted to focus on the ones which are used the most, and then also look at the overall data on an ongoing basis to make sure that, hey, these are the ROIs which we expect for each of these agents. And in fact, internally, we have set a goal for some of the PMs to have a customer adoption rate that really drives urgency, right? And the way they, of course, it has been adopted, but then they are also setting up some ROI goals, working with the customers on this is what we expect in 3 months. If you don't hit that target, right, we will get to know even before the retailers gets to know, right? We internally OneStock, and then we put together a plan on how can we have that conversation with the retailer. Are we going to have a conversation as part of their QBR meeting where we are sitting and having those conversations with them, or are we going to tweak this internally so that they don't even see that, right? And then we show the improvement and then go back to them with data.
Right. No, it's interesting. One of the things I wanted to pick up on that you mentioned was measurement. You're measuring which tools internally that are being used more than others. I guess, are those tools that are provided by OpenAI, their enterprise license, who's using what models, et cetera? Or is it tool analytics or other
Yeah.
measurement you've developed?
No, it's a great question. So at this point, there are a few tools, which we are developing on our own. That is where we are, right? I think, but it's mostly because OpenAI, LLM, they're also evolving. The same thing with Anthropic. By the way, we also use Anthropic for some of the agentic commerce experimentation we are doing. So the tools are evolving. I was just talking to our dev lead, VP of development the other day, and he was saying, we are trying out different tools, both from a testing perspective, development, observability. We are using newer tools and also building some in-house tools, right? One thing what we have done, Rick, is we have made tweaked our SDLC to be a lot more agile, right? What I mean by that is it's more of a build, measure, learn approach, which is basically fail fast, move fast, right? So we understand that we are also evolving along with the rest of the LLMs and the rest of the tools out there. So not having any of our development married to one specific tool is very important for us. And the same way we have developed our two MCP tools, the agents, if we have to unplug it from OpenAI today and there's another LLM which is better tomorrow, we absolutely are ready to do that. And we are focusing on the business problem. And technology, as I mentioned before, is an enabler in this case, AI, of course.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point because I would agree with you. You don't want to pick a winner too soon. And at the end of the day, if it's achieving your outcome, you don't necessarily care what model you're using. If you're using a private model or a big public model, and then open source catches up, like what Linux did in the server market to Microsoft, or something like this. Like, why should you care what's running in the background as long as it's working?
Yeah, and that is why obviously the OneBot, what we have done internally, given us the platform to experiment some of these things, because it is very hard to do the experimentation when you have a customer knocking on the door and trying to solve a business problem for them. Now we have identified, hey, if it's agentic commerce, we pick this technology. If it's operational efficiency, this is the technology. If it's knowledge based, so we have kind of picked those technologies right now, and at the same time, kind of keeping an eye out there to see, what is evolving and kind of tweak it along the way.
Obviously, you came into a situation where part of your job is to uncover what's going on. But if you're, an existing company in the audience, like one of the things I noticed that you have a PM related to AI internally and externally. Like, how did you make that decision? Is that something you believe is generally applicable advice to others, to have a point person whose job it is to interface with other departments? What are the pros and cons of that kind of approach? I would love to talk about sort of like, I guess, broadly change management a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think, with the way we have, started with this whole, single PM for AI is purely because we are at a very experimental stage with AI, right? I think there's going to be a time where every PM within the organization, right? A PM who's in charge of inventory, a PM who's in charge of customer promise, PM who's in charge of customer service, whatnot. They all have to embrace AI as part of their overall strategy and release plan. So every feature they think about, right? How can they bring that to life using an agentic AI experience, or how can they use ML behind the background to crank some of the history? Because if you look at every experience which you have there, which you're providing to your business users as well as your customers, there's tons and tons of data, right? Starting from configuration data to transaction data, whether it's structured or unstructured, right? It really starts with the data. You need to have clean data. So all of the PMs are responsible for, having clean data. That's point number one. Point number two is now this particular PM who's in charge of AI, right, is going to get all the learnings and kind of pass it on to the rest of the PMs so that the rest of the teams can start using some of these tools and the technology as part of their own modules and whatnot, so that they are not dependent on one particular team delivering the agentic experiences.
Mm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's interesting. I want to go back and like maybe lightly challenge you a little bit, because it's interesting because it's like you're starting with the business problems. That's your focus. But then you're also, I would say mandating, but you're strongly encouraging your PMs that you need to solve this problem with AI, which, there's only so many hours in the day. It means you don't explore other ways to solve the same problem. How do you think about that balance? To like, what if in 5 years we woke up and figure out that AI is just not good at certain types of problems relative to what we could have done? Is that a risk or is it not?
So I think there's reality, right? The reality is there's expectations today, right? So we have to keep an eye on that. Yes, we are solving the business problem, but are we solving the business problem with the latest technology? And what is the latest technology available to us today is what we are using. And in this case, it happens to be agentic AI. And if you come and we have the same conversation next year, it might not be. And
Right.
that is part of our
Right.
job. It is not the retailer's job. And I don't think the retailer should or ever focus on how to solve a problem. That is our job as a vendor. We need to pick the right technology, right way to go and solve these problems. And we believe at this point, agentic AI is a great technology or tool available to us, and we have to go and solve it that way. And that's really the mandate. It's not like just use agentic AI tomorrow. If my PM from AI comes and says, "Hey, there's a new thing which is evolving, and we should be using this," versus or a new LLM which has come, absolutely, we should be open to that.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. And it seems to me like you're setting up these phases. Like, look, if we don't even experiment with this technology, we're never going to learn about it, which kind of implies that you're thinking a little bit more broadly about a progression. So let's say experimentation is your phase one from the company point of view. What do you call the next phases, and what are the goals of those phases?
So one of the things we have done is, as I mentioned earlier, elevate some of the stuff we have built and talk about it to our customers and prospects. So we expect, and we already had this in the customer event we had a few customers already raising their hands up and say, I need, or I like that configuration agent. I want it now, right? Or I love this other developer agent you are working on, right? I would like to co-innovate with you on that one, right? I love this other store associate or a customer service agent you are working on, and I want to co-innovate with you. That is a good problem to have, because I
Right.
always, when I've done product management before, and one of the things I'm sure you have done, right, Rick, you and I have talked about this. The best problem to have, or the best way to, release a feature, is when you have a few customers already piloting it for you. Right. I mean, what better proof point can you have, right? And what better advocate can you have? And that is the way we are. So we have done the experimentation internally. We are now ready to, we have already started releasing a mixture of 50 tools. We released, about a week back. In the last release, we had MCP tools, MCP server, as well as the native agent, which is built on those MCP tools. In this case, the configuration agent is already out for our customers today. So as we are building the rest of the agents or building the roadmap, we are not going to build it in vacuum. Absolutely not. Right? We want to co-innovate with our customers, and that's the phase we are in. And as we co-innovate, we will iterate on it, and we will see, should we go deep on a configuration agent? Should solve this, or should we focus on another agent?
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. And one of the things I heard you mention kind of throughout the process was how many different MCP tools you've released. And wanted to pull on that thread for a minute, just in terms of, I think there are a lot of people that are still confused. MCP is new. Like, again, to your point, like 2 years ago, I don't think it existed. I think even the standard is new this year, at least publicly. So kudos to Anthropic. But how do you define, like, I guess for the audience, what problem that MCP is designed to solve? And then where are you using it and where are you not using it?
Good, great question. I think one of the first slides we put together when we explained this to our company internal audience is, hey, we are doing this a new release. We are doing an AI launch. I don't know why I called it AI launch, but it's the AI tools launch. I think we put together a slide to understand or explain the difference between an API world and an MCP world. And listen, I think we are going to start living in what I called an impure architecture world, right? Because I don't think there's going to be, just an MCP world. There's just going to be an MCP world. API world. There's just going to be a microservices world. There's just going to be a monolithic world. I don't think we are going to. We're living in that world already, and it's going to get more impure, right? What we are doing internally is again going back to the business problem. Does this business problem need to be solved using just a feature function? For example, if you need to build a feature function in customer service and somebody needs a button to do something that probably just needs an API, new API, that's fine. But if we think there's an opportunity to have an agentic AI experience right there to ask a question to the customer service, hey, the best recommended step based on historical data. Remember, I'm using a little bit of ML there. It's not purely, right? So that's why I'm based on the decisions what the other CSRs have taken. This is the best recommended step and providing that. So there's a mixture of ML, MCP tools, agentic AI. That's what we will do. So we will focus on the business problem and what is the best way to provide a solution for that business problem. And I think there are pros and cons, as you mentioned. Moving from an API to API is absolutely lightweight. It gets the job done. It's stateless. We know everything about the API. But on the MCP, I think it's more contextual in nature. And one of the things which really provided us is having that conversation. I remember walking into the store with my dad 20 years back and having that conversation with a store associate. And they are like, hey, Karthik, and, how did the dress you bought last time work? And, what are you here for? Oh, I'm here for a wedding, blah, blah, blah. So having that conversation, right? I think customers are missing that today and business users are missing. I think, MCP provides that. And we are in the business of providing that to our customers.
I mean, it's an interesting place because we're not sure fully the scope of how is it going to evolve. And if you had to sort of compare and contrast sort of like the platform, the LLM, the API, and the MCP, how would you sort of place these in the ecosystem for people?
I think LLM in a lot of ways, today, right? And we are soon finding this out as well. Even though we are using the OpenAI LLM and we have released agents, what it's not doing today is, unlike your ChatGPT experience or your Perplexity experience where you have your individual accounts, right? So the same Rick or the Karthik having a conversation with ChatGPT yesterday, right? The same exact question, if you ask today, it'll be a lot different, the response what you get, because it's learning from the conversation you had yesterday, right? And today, if you try to deliver the same experience with the agents what you release built on top of the OpenAI, unfortunately, the OpenAI, the LLM, does not have context of the business users of the end customer because they themselves don't have that accounts with the OpenAI. It is the onus is on the software vendors like us to develop that context and also to develop some of this mini history and context within our solutions.
It's an interesting point because I think, at least at the current time, and maybe this will change. I mean, I've seen OpenAI release this memory feature, with just in the last couple of months, that you can turn on to maybe remember some more of the history.
Yep.
So perhaps we'll see that change in the next year.
Sure. And we will first experiment it internally, as we always do, with one bot. And then, you're right.
I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. I was like, are there any sort of parting words that you have, lessons, for those that are making a similar journey, things to keep in mind, or?
I think what we have done. I can only talk from that experience and from the learnings, and I think it's a great way to go about how you try out some technology and see if that is the best technology to use for the business problems you solve, rather than just jumping in and developing a MCP tool, MCP server, agent, whatnot. I think try it out with your internal audience. Okay, find an opportunity to solve that problem for your internal audience, and I think that helps you develop the empathy and the perspective of how users react to some of the innovations what you develop. And the technology, is it the right technology, what you need to be picking? I think it kind of provides you the platform, the learnings, and then you start co-innovating with your customers, right? So that is the best way to do it before you kind of go and talk about it to the external world. It's okay, be the advocate for AI or agentic commerce, whatnot. But I think you absolutely need to start building small, right? And constantly learn, right? And measure your outcomes, and then tweak it along the way, right?
Right. Yeah. So define your business problems, really prioritize what's important to you, experiment with your internal users, and then use that to build as your customers come to, forward to you with problems. And you're like, oh, can you help co-develop this and turn it into something useful?
Absolutely. That has worked for us. And yeah.
That's great. Well, I appreciate your time today, Karthik. You've been very generous with your knowledge and experience, which is considerable in this space. So, again, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Today, we saw what it's like when AI shifts from sort of feature into like really an operating system for the business, ideally making every employee better. If you are wrestling with similar questions, what is appropriate for an MCP versus APIs, where to start with, how to measure these things, send me a message. I'm Rick Watson, and I'm here collecting real stories from the field from leaders who are actually working with these tools and getting work done. So thanks for joining me on the podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.